I'm gonna need you to understand, guys, pesos are not peanuts. What is good? What is good? What is good, beautiful people? Of course, you know who I be. Good Doc, Dr. Mike TV, back again, once again, instant classic in the making. First time to the channel, guys, y'all make sure y'all get the likes up, make sure you subscribe, notify, do all the good things to make yourself well versed in the Good Doc's content. Anything you should ever need to know about the Good Doc's extracurricular activities, Patreons, ebooks, all the good shit, the podcast, t-shirts, all of that stuff should be listed in the links in the description areas below. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I have to talk to y'all real quick because I kind of feel like we take the peso for granted. The Philippine peso, I honestly feel like most of us foreigners take it for granted. And in my last video, I mentioned the idea of how foreigners are going broke because, they're spending pesos damn near like water. Because of the value that you get for it in reference to the US dollar. But I want to take you guys back probably to the early 2010s. If any of you ever visited the Philippines during that particular time, you will notice in and around that time, don't get me the lying about the exact year that it was, but you'll notice around the early part of the 2010s, the peso was trading at about 35 to 39 to the dollar. So there have been moments where the US dollar did not fare well to the peso. As a matter of fact, if you go back into history, at one point, I think the peso and the dollar were trading 1-to-1. Now, again, this was a long time ago, back when, the economy of the Philippines was a little bit stronger and they were backed by a regime that some people may consider questionable at best. But getting back to my main point, pesos are not peanuts, guys. Pesos are not the type of currency that us foreigners should be taken for granted. I feel like we come to the Philippines with the mindset that our money, whether it be US dollar, the UK dollar, euros, whatever it may be, we come to the country with the thought process that our money from our country will take us further and bring us further than where we were when we choose to exchange it for the Philippine peso within the Philippines, and it's going to give us a lot more buying power. And to an extent, you are absolutely correct. Let's be honest. This goes without saying. We all know the Philippines is a third world country. And even though the concept of a third world country is relative and kind of skittish at best, you have different people who have different thoughts on that concept. You have to understand that you're likely to have more buying power with your money when you bring it to the Philippines. The only problem with this buying power is you are, again, taking it for granted. You're going above and beyond when you really don't have to. It brings me back to my last point in the video with keeping up with the Joneses, wherein you're basically spending more money because you're only equating it to the amount of money that you would have spent in your own home country. Now, we have some foreigners who have been to the Philippines who know how it really works, but some of y'all don't. You're just so shocked, you're so appalled, you're so just taken back at the fact that your money goes so far in the Philippines that you really are spending more money than you ever have to. Now, this could come in the form of spending money on women, because a lot of y'all come to the country for the women. Let's go ahead and note that. Maybe, being taken advantage of whenever you're going shopping at the Uka. You guys don't know about foreigner tax. That could also play a role as well. And it's not really bothering you, or it's not really something that you are fazed by because you got it. And like they say, it ain't tricking if you got it. Like they say, man, what's a couple hundred pesos, man? That's nothing to me. And that thought process is, again, why a lot of y'all go broke. That thought process, again, is a very, very key indicator that whenever money spending is not checked or corrected at the earlier stages in your time in the Philippines, guys, a lot of y'all gonna end up with no cash. No cash and no ass. Trust me, ain't nothing worse than being broke and not getting none, okay? Because that's what's going to happen. And I see it, and I'm like the predictor of futures, and I'm looking at you right in the camera right now. Me and you should be locking eyes. If you do not correct spending before it gets out of hand, ladies and gentlemen, you will be broke within the year. No doubt in my mind. I'll give you 6 months. I say 6 months to a year, but I'm giving you 6 months. You can ask your most seasoned traveler about this. Their first time to the country, you can ask your most seasoned traveler. They overspent. And a lot of you guys come to the good doc, and a lot of us that live in the Philippines or have lived in the Philippines, and you say, Doc, how much money do you think I should bring with me to the Philippines? And I always seem to give a baseline answer. This may change and fluctuate every now and again, but the answer that I'm going to stick with from the time this video was being made until the end of time, take whatever number you have in your head, multiply that by 2. Sometimes I say 3, it just depends, but for baseline safety, whatever number you have in your head on the amount of money that you actually think that you need in the country, multiply that by 2. Because you're going to probably spend more than you planned on spending. Easy. Vacation, most definitely. First, 6 months to a year in the country, it's an adjustment period, guys. We all go through it. I went through it. You can name even your favorite YouTubers been through it. Anybody who's lived in the Philippines has gone through it. Any foreigner that has spent time in the Philippines has gone through the adjustment period. Sometimes that adjustment period is a lot shorter than it is for others. Sometimes it takes a moment for you to figure it out. Guys, it's going to take time to figure it out. Nobody's perfect. And I don't expect you to get it right on your first time. You can watch 1,000,001 videos on budgets, because everybody and their mama got a budget video, myself included. You can watch 1,000,001 videos on how to budget and how to maintain and how to do this in the Philippines, but you're never going to know how you're truly going to fare until you've actually been in the country. All the videos on earth can't prepare you for how easy it is to spend pesos in the country. And all things considering, every foreigner on God's green earth can attest to this. The Philippines is a cash-based country. And because the Philippines is a cash-based country, you got to carry cash, man. It's not like swiping a card. I kind of feel like swiping a card might be easier in the Philippines, even though that's not really true. But in my opinion, I think swiping a card is a little bit easier. But then foreigners having pesos in their hand. And the reason I say that is because with that money in your hand, that 1,000, you can spend 1,000 easy. You can spend 2,000 easy. Go to your favorite restaurant, eat a nice little good meal. That's $50 out the rip. That's 2,500 easy. And I'm talking about like your Fridays, your more Americanized restaurants, because a lot of you guys are probably going to go there. You're going to go to what's recognizable, what's familiar. That's where you're probably going to spend the majority of your money. Now, aside from your activities, your extracurriculars with whoever you're choosing to partake in those activities with, that's going to be the other part of your money. All right? That's going to probably make up the majority of what you're going to spend on. Because you're not likely to go shopping for yourself. I mean, shit, what do you need? Most of the time, you got all the clothes that you'll ever need. And some of us can't even fit the clothes in the Philippines anyways. Because most of us are of a different body structure than those of Filipino people. So the majority of your money is going to go towards women. The majority of your money is going to go towards food. Most of the time, the majority of your money is going to connect because you're probably going to be feeding your Filipina. Yeah, that's something you need to know as well. So food and whatever activities you're partaking with a specific young lady or young man, whatever floats your boat. That's where the majority of your money is going to go. And I feel like us as foreigners take the peso for granted. I'm sorry. I could look at you right in this camera and tell you you're one of those, man. The reason I'm going to the Philippines is because the Philippines is cheap. Actually, the Philippines is not cheap. It's cheaper than probably where you're coming from, but the Philippines is not cheap. Have you ever tried to buy a cell phone in the Philippines? Have you ever tried to buy electronics in the Philippines? That shit expensive as hell, okay? So we can't sit there and say the Philippines is cheap. If you talk about food, probably activities you partake in, it's only cheap. Cheap is only relative in that talking point only because it depends on how much money you actually have, how much money you're actually bringing with you, how much money you actually have access to. So when we say the Philippines is cheap, the Philippines is cheap, man, you can spend all your money here, you could do this, that, and the other. You're taking the peso for granted, ladies and gentlemen. And I never want you to do that. I think that is something that would be more detrimental than beneficial in your life. So if you're really going to the Philippines, guys, if you really want to make a conscientious effort to actually spend some time there, I caution you, watch how you spend in the first month. You're going to be shocked. I encourage you guys to at least do one activity for me, all right? Because I don't expect you to penny pinch. I mean, I want you to be able to enjoy yourself, of course. So I'm not expecting you to penny pinch. But keep a tab on what you spend on, all right? I don't care if you're paying for the punat. I don't give a fuck. I don't care what it is you're spending for. I don't care if it's a fucking sack of rice or something. Whatever you're buying, groceries, going out to eat, payment for activities, massages, whatever you guys are able to partake in, whatever you guys are willing to partake in. Just keep a note of that. And if you're staying there for a significant amount of time, like you're giving it a month or so, at the end of that month, see how much money you spent. Okay? Now, if you're staying long term, I'm going to ask you guys to do that for the second month. Because once you get through the second month and you start taking note of what you're spending on, that's when you can find a way to kind of figure out where you can cut costs to make the money last longer if you choose to. Again, if you're making that bank, man, nobody really gives a crap. I mean, shit, if I was rich and I was a millionaire, trust me, guys, I probably wouldn't care about money as much as I do now. Well, actually, I'm lying. I would care even more because I'm trying not to lose those millions like, your average. But in hindsight, I would probably be a little bit more relaxed in my spending, or I would create a budget for myself that was a little bit larger than if I only had minimal amounts of money to my name. And I know a lot of you guys don't believe in budgets. I understand that. That's perfectly fine. You can do whatever the fuck you want. Okay. It's not my prerogative. You're going to do what you want to do. But what I want you to take from this video is to put some respect on the peso's name. Put some spec on the peso's name. Because if you don't, I'll be seeing y'all bitches stateside within a year easy. Trust me. Trust me when I tell you. I know a lot of guys who had to tuck their tails and head back home. The money just wasn't sufficient. And it wasn't that they didn't have enough of it. It wasn't that they weren't making enough of it. It's just they really took the peso for granted. Looking at pesos like peanuts. It's a hard pill to swallow, ladies and gentlemen. But it's one that I think you need to right now. Swallow it before it gets worse. I promise you that. This has been a message from the Good Doc, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope that you found some truth in it. Hope that you found some value in it. If you did, like, subscribe, notify, do all the good things. You know what to do. All right, man, I'm going to go ahead and cut it short, man. That being said, Good Doc is officially out. At least, which means I am going out. Bye-bye. As always, love you guys. Sincerely do. Makita. Mabuhay. Peace.